Well, news writing follows a structure that's called the inverted pyramid. So let's take a look at what that involves. Remember, we talked about putting the who, what, why, when, where, and how in the summary lead. And we need to tell readers what happens next, though. And so we build from that summary lead the entire inverted pyramid story. Let's take a look at how that happens. Now, up until the late 1800s, let's remember that news was almost always told in a more traditional narrative sense, and I'm sure you can guess why that must be the case. For one thing, news didn't travel very quickly, so we didn't have to worry about breaking news because it wasn't something that was truly breaking. It would take weeks or even months. So, here's an example of a correspondent, William Howard Russell, in his coverage of the Battle of Balaclava in 1854. You can see it's beautiful language of the exhibition of the most brilliant valor, of the excess of courage, etc. But it wasn't until we got to the end of the story that we saw the news that a mix-up in orders resulted in a 650-man cavalry brigade charging into enemy guns, and in a few minutes more than 100 were dead. So there wasn't really any urgency to this story because it would take 3 weeks for him to reach his readers, so he was able to paint these pretty descriptive pictures and not risk losing his readers. Again, there wasn't as much news to consume either, so he had kind of a captive audience here. Now, the telegraph was invented in 1845, though, and really that gave birth to this idea of the inverted pyramid. We had instant communication, we could do live, late-breaking news, and we were able to start to convey information in a way that was meaningful to people. Now, for a long time, we've thought that the inverted pyramid started with the Civil War, but there's a new hypothesis that actually says that it was Lincoln's assassination that was among the first inverted pyramid stories. So here's a story that came out of the New York Herald on April 15th. This is the day after that Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater, and you can see that it's still more of a narrative story than we would expect, which, if we've written it today, it would be that the president was shot. But you can see it's fairly quickly, within the 4th paragraph, we know that the president was dying. So that's much faster than what we'd seen in the past. So we're giving readers the key facts first. I want you to think about if you're writing a story about a car crash and you begin that story when the person left the driveway, not too many people are going to keep reading with you unless it's a pretty compelling story. So we're looking to answer questions right before the reader's going to ask them. Now here's an example. Here's the lead, so that inverted pyramid lead, remember that, this summary lead. Investigators say a Licking County woman used Facebook to stir public interest in a gut-wrenching medical battle her young son never actually waged. Now, I'm guessing that the reader's next question would be, well, who is this woman and what was this medical battle that her son allegedly waged that didn't? So here's the rest of it. Emily King's claim that her 4-year-old son JJ is fighting pleuropulmonary blastoma, a rare form of cancer, is fraudulent. And then source here is Utica Police Department Detective Damian Smith said. Now, my next question would be, well, how did she get someone to believe that he had this cancer? King, who couldn't be reached for comment, used several Facebook pages, including Prayers for JJ, to publicize her son's illness. And then we get more information about how this kind of fraud was perpetuated on the public. So she had these posts, then firefighters invited her and her son to come visit, and there was, they were very, they supported this boy and taught him how to use a fire hose. And so now I'm wondering, well, how did someone get caught doing this? And so the next part of the story is someone became suspicious, and she told 10 TV, which is where the story came from. She asked who the oncologist was, and she got kicked out of the Facebook group. And then the TV station found other inconsistencies in the woman's story. Now, by now we're getting fairly far into the story, so really I'm wondering, is there anything else I need to know about this? And this is what they give me. This is the rest of the story. The hospital said she's not an employee. State licensing officials have no record she was ever a nurse in Ohio. Utica police said they want to hear from anyone who sent the Kings money. So this is the end of the story. It's interesting, but it's not as compelling or as informative to me as the earlier part. So remember that inverted pyramid, the most important information, next most important to least important.